All right, so just to review really quickly here before we move on. So we've been talking about the imaginary numbers. And so we said that the square root of -1 is the imaginary unit I. And then I squared, I times I is I squared, that equals -1. So I squared can be replaced with -1. We also talked about finding the square root of a negative number. So you would first take this square root of your negative number and make it an imaginary unit. So you drop the negative and make it the imaginary unit. Also, standard form for these complex or imaginary numbers is a plus bi, and we'll be talking about this more today, standard form. So today we're going to look at a few learning targets. We are going to now use these imaginary units, and we're going to apply some operations. So we're going to look at addition, subtraction, and multiplication. All right, so our first learning target is I can add complex numbers. So a complex number is in the form a plus bi. Remember, that's standard form. So let's look at this first example. So you're taking 4 minus 7i, that's our first complex number, and we're going to add -11 plus 9i. So what you want to do here is first we're going to add the real numbers together. So step 1, add your real numbers. So these are the a terms. We're talking about the a here. So that would be 4 plus -11. 4 plus -11 is -7. Now we're going to add our imaginary numbers. Add imaginary numbers. So these are your bi's. So let's look at our problem. -7i plus 9i is 2i. So basically what we're doing here is we're combining our like terms. Combine like terms. And then finally, we need to make sure our answer is in standard form. So write answer in standard form. And remember, standard form is the a plus bi. So the real number goes first, and then the imaginary number at the end. So let's check. I got a real number, imaginary number at the end. So it's in standard form. That's my final answer. Okay, let's do one for subtraction. Okay, so I can subtract complex numbers. All right. So the first thing you want to do is distribute the negative. Distribute the negative. This is very important. If you don't do this, you're not going to get the right answer. Distribute the negative. So let's see what that means. So I'm going to start with my problem. 6 plus 8i minus 2 minus 5i. So here's my negative right here, and I'm going to distribute it to what comes after it. So I'm going to bring down the 6 plus 8i, and then distribute the negative. So it basically changes my signs in here. So negative 2 and positive 5i. Now it looks a lot like our addition problem. So we're going to basically combine our like terms again. So we're going to add the real numbers, the a terms, and then add the imaginary numbers. So the bi's. Again, this is just combining like terms. Okay, so 6 minus 2 there is 4, and then 8i plus 5i is 13i. And as always, make sure your answer is in standard form. So answer in that a plus bi form. So a plus bi, we're good to go. And there's my answer. Okay, pause the video and try the next two down here. All right, so a is just addition, so I can add my real numbers. So negative 4 plus negative 2 is negative 6. And then 6i plus negative 9i is negative 3i. Make sure it's in standard form, and it is. I'm good to go. So now I have a subtraction one, so I want to make sure that I distribute that negative first. So that becomes positive 4 minus I. And then combine my like terms, so 3 plus 4 is 7, negative 2i minus 1i, you could say that that's a 1i, would be negative 3i there. And it is in standard form, a and then the bi term. All right, so we did addition and subtraction. Now let's look at multiplication. So I can multiply complex numbers here. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, step one, is you're either going to FOIL or use the distribute property. So for this one, for A, this would be distributive. So I'm gonna do negative 2.5i times 8. That would be negative 20i. And then negative 2.5i times negative 9i would be positive 22.5i squared. Because remember, whenever you do I times I times I is I squared. All right, so I did my multiplication. Now I'm going to substitute I squared for negative 1. Because remember, I squared equals negative 1. So I'm going to replace this I squared with negative 1. So this I squared became negative 1 there. All right, now I'm going to combine like terms. So first I need to take care of this multiplication here. So 22.5 times negative 1, that makes it negative 22.5. Then I'll see if I can combine any like terms. I can't because that's an I and that isn't. So then I'm ready to write my answer. So I'll write my answer in standard form. So that's the A plus BI form. So A is the real number. So my real number in this is negative 22.5. So that needs to come first. And then the imaginary number comes behind it. All right, let's look at B. So B, this would be a FOIL. So first terms, 3 times 3 is 9. Outside terms, 3 times 2i would be 6i. Inside terms, negative 2i times 3 would be negative 6i. And then last terms, negative 2i times positive 2i would be negative 4i squared. All right, then I'm going to substitute I squared for negative 1. So right here, oops, that's minus there. So then I have negative 4 times negative 1, that's positive 4. Okay, now I'll combine my like terms. So 9 plus 4 is 13. And then 6i minus 6i, those just cancel out. So the imaginary part goes away and I'm just left with the real number 13. All right, so that is it for today. You are ready to do your worksheet.